I never thought I'd watch my disabled daughter scream in agony, all because a grown woman, our own HOA Karen, threw bleach straight at her. Not by accident, not by mistake, but on purpose just to whiten her dress. The moment that chemical hit her skin, she collapsed on the ground, crying, shaking, begging me to help. And while I was holding my daughter, terrified, Karen just stood there, smiling, saying it was community standards. But what Karen didn't know, this time she picked the wrong mother. And the truth behind why she threw that bleach? That's the part that will destroy you inside. Stay with me, because what happened next will change the whole story. Before I begin this story, I want to talk directly to you. Tell me, what city are you watching this video from? Drop your city name in the comments right now, because today's story, it shook my entire neighborhood, and I want to know where you would stand if something like this happened in your community. All right. And before we continue, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss stories like these, stories that expose the truth, protect families, and remind the world that justice still matters. Now, let me take you right to the moment it all started. No build-up, no sugarcoating, just the raw truth. It was a warm afternoon in our quiet suburban HOA neighborhood, the kind where people pretend everything is perfect, but behind closed doors the cracks run deep. My disabled daughter, Lily, my 10-year-old angel, who walks with a slight limp from a birth injury, was standing on our driveway in her favorite blue dress. She'd been so excited that day, practicing her steps because she wanted to surprise me with how strong she was getting. Then, out of nowhere, the HOA's queen of cruelty herself, Karen, stormed toward us. Her face twisted with disgust, her HOA badge shining like she owned the entire world. She looked at Lily's dress, clicked her tongue, and muttered something about neighborhood appearance standards. At first, I thought she was just being her usual petty self, but I had no idea she had bleach in that bottle she was carrying. No idea she was about to do something so cruel, so twisted, so unforgivable. And what happened next not only shattered my daughter's confidence, but tore apart the illusion of safety we thought we had in this neighborhood. Now, let me take you directly into the moment everything changed. The sun was dipping low, turning the street a soft gold as Lily and I stood in our driveway. It should have been an ordinary day, one of those slow, peaceful afternoons where neighbors walk dogs, kids ride bikes, and everything feels calm. Lily, with her gentle smile and determined heart, was practicing her steps again. She'd been doing that lately. Her physical therapist said building confidence was just as important as building strength. And Lily, she took that to heart. "Mom, look, I can take 3 steps without stopping," she whispered proudly, clutching the edge of her dress. I clapped softly. "Baby, I'm so proud of you." Her blue dress, a simple cotton one with tiny white flowers, was her favorite. She said it made her feel brave. That dress had nothing to do with anyone else. It was clean, neat, and perfectly fine. But in an HOA, nothing is ever fine unless Karen says it is. A sharp set of footsteps cut through the quiet street. I didn't even need to turn around. I knew exactly who it was. That heavy, almost marching step. That loud exhale through her nose. That constant jingling of her HOA badge, like she wants the whole neighborhood to know she's in charge. Karen, the woman who acted like the sun rose and set based on whether she approved of your landscaping. She strutted toward us wearing her new HOA enforcement uniform, the royal blue shirt with golden collar and sleeve trim, black pants, and that oversized badge on her chest like she was some kind of sheriff. Her blonde hair was tied tight, face stiff as stone, and in her hand a spray bottle. I noticed the bottle immediately. The liquid sloshed inside. A strange, harsh smell traveled with it. Something strong. Something chemical. My gut tightened, but I didn't expect the worst. Not yet. Karen stopped just a few feet from us, hands on hips like she was evaluating a crime scene. "What do you want, Karen?" I asked, already tired. Her eyes scanned Lily slowly, like my child was some kind of stain she needed to polish off the neighborhood. "This dress," she said, pointing at Lily, "isn't compliant with our updated community appearance guidelines. My blood froze. Updated? What updated? We didn't get anything. Oh, perhaps you didn't check your mailbox, she said, smirking. We issued new standards for children's attire when outside the home. The board voted yesterday. I almost laughed. You're telling me the HOA created a dress code for kids overnight? She shrugged. We must preserve community, aesthetic. My daughter shrank behind me, gripping my arm. Mom, did I do something wrong? No, sweetheart, I whispered. You did absolutely nothing wrong. But Karen wasn't listening. She never listened. She lifted the bottle in her hand and waved it dismissively. This dress is faded, slightly discolored, not up to code. I stepped forward, blocking Lily with my body. Karen, it's a child's dress. Leave us alone. Her lips curled, voice turning sharp. If you won't wash it, then I will. Before I could process her words, before I could even finish blinking, she sprayed. A powerful stream of liquid shot directly at Lily. It happened in one nightmarish flash. Lily screamed, a raw, piercing scream that ripped straight through my chest. Her hands flew to her face, but some of it hit her arm too. Within seconds, her skin turned red, blotchy, irritated. The smell was unmistakable. Bleach, not diluted, not gentle, not accidental. Pure bleach. I lunged forward, grabbing Lily and pulling her into my arms. She was trembling, crying, gasping for air. Mom, it burns. My heart shattered. What the hell is wrong with you? I screamed at Karen. Karen just stood there, calm, unbothered, almost pleased. It's community standard, she said, shrugging. You should thank me. I'm trying to clean up the neighborhood. A dress that dull makes the area look cheap. I snapped. She's a child. She's disabled. Are you out of your mind? Karen rolled her eyes. Her eyes. The coldest I've ever seen. She should be thankful I didn't fine you for negligent presentation. My hands were shaking as I held Lily's face gently, blowing on her skin, trying to soothe the burn. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She kept saying, It hurts, Mom, it hurts. I turned my head sharply. Karen, stay right there. I'm calling the police. But Karen actually laughed. You think the police will care about a dress code issue? She said. Don't be dramatic. I pulled my phone out anyway, but Karen took a step closer, lowering her voice. If you escalate this, she hissed, I will file a citation for noncompliance, property neglect, and public disturbance. And believe me, I'll win. I always do. The arrogance dripping from her voice, the confidence, the threat. It wasn't just that she believed she was right. She believed she was untouchable. But she didn't know something. She didn't know what I used to do, who I used to be, what my background was. I gently lifted Lily into my arms, her head resting on my shoulder, her breath shaky. I rushed her inside the house, straight to the bathroom, turning on the cold water and washing her skin carefully. My hands trembled as I dabbed her face with a clean towel. Mom, did I make her mad? Lily asked softly. My throat closed up. No, baby. You didn't make anyone mad. She's the one who's wrong. But deep inside, something was shifting, a storm I'd kept buried for years. A part of me I hoped I'd never need again. The part that knew exactly how to deal with people who hurt innocent children, especially my child. As Lily sat on the counter, her eyes red and swollen, she whispered something that broke me completely. I was just wearing my favorite dress? Why does she hate me so much? I couldn't answer. Because the truth was worse than anything Lily could imagine. Karen didn't hate the dress. She didn't hate the color. She didn't hate the fabric. She hated my daughter, her strength, her spirit, her presence. And throwing bleach wasn't just about the dress. It was about power, control, and a secret deeper than I ever realized. As I held Lily's hand, one thought burned through my mind. Karen crossed a line she can't come back from. And I was about to show her just how wrong she was. Lily finally stopped trembling once the cold water eased the burning on her cheek. I wrapped her gently in a soft towel and held her close, rocking her the same way I used to when she was tiny. Her breathing steadied, but she still clung to me as if Karen might storm into the house any moment with another bottle of bleach. "I'm right here, baby," I whispered, kissing her forehead. "No one's ever going to hurt you again." But inside me, a different storm was brewing, a silent, simmering rage twisting tighter and tighter. When Lily was calm enough, I tucked her into the couch in the living room, her favorite cartoon playing softly to comfort her. She leaned her head on a pillow, eyelids heavy from shock and pain. "I'll be right back," I whispered. She nodded, but her eyes said she didn't want me to leave, not even for a second. Still, I had to. I stood and walked into the kitchen, lifting my phone with shaking hands. I stared at the screen for a long moment, not because I didn't know who to call, but because calling meant awakening a part of myself I thought I'd put away forever. A part one promised my husband, before he died, that I would no longer use. But then I remembered Lily's scream, her trembling hands, her tear-streaked face, and Karen's smug smile. I pressed the number. It rang once. "Hello," a familiar voice answered. "It's me," I said, my voice cold but steady. There was a pause. I haven't heard that tone in years. "What happened?" "An assault," I replied quietly. "On a minor. Chemical exposure. Intentional." Another pause. Then the voice lowered. "Where?" "Brookwood HOA. My house." "Do you need backup?" I swallowed. "Not yet. I'll call if it escalates." "Understood. I'll be on standby." I hung up. My hands finally stopped shaking. That voice belonged to someone from my old life, someone who knew me before I traded tactical gear for motherhood, before I left behind everything that came with being a field investigator for cases far darker than HOA politics. If Karen knew who she'd just provoked, she would have run. But she didn't know. Not yet. I stepped back into the living room and found Lily watching me with those soft, trusting eyes. "Mom, am I in trouble?" she whispered. "No," I said, brushing her hair back gently. "You're safe, and I'm going to take care of everything." She nodded, but she still looked afraid. "Is the Bleach lady still outside?" I clenched my jaw. Not for long. Night fell quickly, and Karen's porch lights blazed like stadium floodlights. Everyone in the neighborhood knew she kept them on to remind people that she watched everything. And tonight, her house was louder than usual, voices inside, the clinking of glasses, laughter. A meeting. Not just any meeting. An HOA meeting. Of course. She didn't just assault a kid. She went straight to throw a party afterwards. Or maybe to cover something up. I put Lily to sleep early, kissed her forehead, and slipped out to the porch. The cool night air brushed my skin as I watched Karen's house from across the street. Her windows glowed with warm light, silhouettes moving inside. And then I saw it. One silhouette that didn't belong. A tall man, broad shoulders, wearing an HOA staff jacket. I frowned. I'd never seen him before. Karen never hired help. What was he doing here? I stepped back into the shadow of my porch column, watching carefully. The man walked toward the kitchen, carrying what looked like a clipboard, or maybe a bag. Then he passed directly under a window, and the light hit his face. My breath caught. I knew him. Not personally, but I recognized the look, the posture, the stiffness, the scanning of the room every few seconds. A man trained in private security, or worse, enforcement. But why would Karen need someone like that? I stayed in the shadows until the meeting ended. One by one, the HOA members left, some drunk, some exhausted, some whispering in hushed voices. Karen waved goodbye to them as if she were the queen dismissing her court. The man didn't leave with the others. So Karen stepped out onto her porch, crossed her arms, and whispered something to him. He nodded and disappeared around the back of her house. My stomach twisted. This wasn't about the dress. This wasn't about community standards. This wasn't even about control anymore. Karen was planning something bigger, but I didn't have proof, not yet. So I walked back inside, grabbed my notebook from the junk drawer, and sat down at the table. I began writing everything down from the start, the bleach, the stranger, the threats. Because when I expose Karen, I won't miss a single detail. Halfway through writing, a soft knock came at the door. I froze. It was past 11 p.m. I glanced toward Lily's room. She was sound asleep. Then I moved quietly toward the front door. I didn't open it. I peered through the peephole. My heart thudded. Karen stood outside. But she wasn't alone. With her was the same tall man, now wearing black gloves. I stepped back immediately. Karen leaned closer to my door and spoke in a low, eerie voice that slid through the cracks like poison. I know you're awake. We need to have a conversation. My breath stopped in my chest. The man beside her cracked his knuckles. You shouldn't have made a scene earlier, Karen continued. People like you don't last long in well-maintained communities like ours. People like you. My blood boiled. She wasn't just talking about my daughter now. She was talking about me. I didn't answer. I didn't open the door. But I did reach to my side table drawer and quietly pull out my old badge, the one I retired years ago. I stared at it. I hadn't touched this badge in so long, but tonight it felt heavier than ever. Karen kept knocking, until suddenly a voice behind her whispered, "Leave, she's recording." Karen stiffened, glanced at my door one last time, and hissed, "This isn't finished." Then she walked away, heels hitting the pavement like a warning shot. The man followed her, but he didn't look convinced. He looked curious, suspicious, and dangerous. As their silhouettes disappeared into the night, I locked the door, double-checked the windows, and returned to Lily's room. I sat on the floor beside her bed, watching her sleep, because tonight's events confirmed something chilling. Karen didn't throw bleach because she hated the dress. She threw bleach because of something much deeper. Something personal, something planned, something dangerous. And she wasn't done. But neither was I. Tomorrow, the real war would begin. I barely slept that night, if you could call it sleep. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind brushing the windows, every car driving by made my nerves tighten. My mind kept replaying the same image on a loop, Karen standing at my doorstep with that strange man, whispering threats like she held the universe in her fist. But morning came anyway, and with it a new kind of fear. Lily woke with a soft whimper, touching the side of her cheek, where the bleach had burned her. The skin was still irritated, angry red patches where innocence had been attacked. "Mom, what if she comes back?" she whispered. "She won't," I assured her, smoothing her hair. "Not as long as I'm here." But deep inside, something told me the opposite. Karen wasn't done. She never left things halfway. And whatever she was planning was bigger than a bleach attack. After breakfast, I walked onto the porch with my phone in hand, pretending to check email, but really scanning the neighborhood. Karen's house looked calm from the outside, as if last night had never happened. No guards, no strange men, no activity. But a person like Karen didn't stay quiet unless she was plotting. So I walked to the mailbox, acting casual. Inside, instead of bills and coupons, I found a thick white envelope with the HOA logo stamped across the front. My stomach tightened. I tore it open, and what I saw inside made my blood boil. A citation. Property neglect. Child's attire below aesthetic standard. Public disturbance. Loud reactions to community corrections. Safety hazard. Permitting unstable child behavior outdoors. Unstable child behavior? I felt my fingertips go numb. Karen was rewriting reality on paper, turning herself from the villain into the hero, twisting Lily into some nuisance the neighborhood needed controlling. Buried in the paperwork, there was something else, a bold, underlined paragraph. Failure to attend mandatory HOA hearings will result in forced compliance measures. Forced compliance. My jaw clenched so tight, I felt a muscle twitch. Karen wasn't planning to find me. She was planning to remove us. Force us out. Treat my daughter like a problem to be cleaned up. This wasn't about bleach. This wasn't about a dress. This was a campaign. A campaign to erase us. And that's when the real question hit me. Why? What was Karen so desperate to get rid of? I spent the next hour reviewing the document carefully, highlighting every phrase that didn't make sense, cross-checking the HOA bylaws. And one thing stood out. None of the amendments she cited were official. None had been approved through legitimate channels. She created them herself, meaning she was faking authority, meaning she had something to hide. I needed answers, and in an HOA neighborhood, answers always started with the people Karen hated the most, the quiet ones, the ones she underestimated, the ones who saw everything but said nothing. So, I headed down the street to Mrs. Whitman's house, the oldest resident in the neighborhood, a widow who rarely spoke but watched the world from her porch swing every morning at 9 a.m. sharp. She was already sitting there, her floral mug filled with black coffee, her hair tied in a bun. She looked up as I approached. "Morning, dear," she said softly. "Rough night." I swallowed. "You heard?" "I heard more than you think." She patted the seat beside her. "Sit." I sat. She took a deep breath and lowered her voice. "I saw Karen come to your house last night, and she wasn't alone. You recognize the man?" A sadness flickered in her eyes. "Yes, I've seen him before, sneaking around late at night near the HOA office." "Who is he?" She looked down at her hands. "The HOA didn't hire him. Karen hired him. Off the record." "Why?" That's when her voice cracked. "Because Karen is about to lose everything." My brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Whitman leaned closer, whispering like the trees might be listening. 2 months ago, there was an audit. The state reviewed HOA funds. Things didn't add up. Money missing. Documents altered. Signatures forged. My chest tightened. And Karen? She's the one responsible. It all clicked. Karen wasn't harassing us because she hated Lily's dress. She wasn't trying to enforce any code. She was trying to silence us. Because 2 weeks ago, I volunteered at the HOA office to organize paperwork, and I accidentally saw something she didn't want anyone to see, a budget file with numbers that didn't match the public records. Karen thought I didn't notice. Karen was wrong. I stared at Mrs. Whitman. She thinks I'm going to expose her. "Yes," she whispered, "and she's panicking." I felt something sharp inside me, like a blade aligning with purpose. "And the bleach?" I asked quietly. Mrs. Whitman hesitated. "It was a message," she said. "Karen never attacks directly unless she feels threatened." The word shook me. A message. Using my daughter. I stood slowly, anger simmering behind every breath. "If she's hiding financial fraud," I said, "I can prove it." Mrs. Whitman nodded. "Be careful, dear. Karen is desperate. Desperate people do stupid things." As if on cue, a loud engine rumbled down the street. A black SUV, tinted windows, matte finish, rolled slowly past my house, past Mrs. Whitman's, then slowed directly in front of Karen's driveway. The same man stepped out. He glanced at me and smiled. Not kindly, not politely, but like he was sizing me up. I felt ice slide down my spine. Mrs. Whitman whispered, "He's dangerous. You need to stay ahead of him." My eyes narrowed. I already am. Because now the truth was out. Karen didn't attack Lily because of a dress. She attacked her because she thought I was a threat to her lies, to her power, to her empire of fraudulent HOA control. And now, I wasn't just a threat. I was her worst nightmare. Because she had no idea who she was dealing with. And she had no clue that the badge I had buried years ago was about to resurface. And this time, I wasn't holding back. By the time I walked back home, the puzzle pieces inside my mind had stopped spinning. They were falling into place. Each click felt louder, sharper, more dangerous. Karen wasn't just a bully or a bitter HOA tyrant with too much time and bleach on her hands. No, this was deeper. This was criminal. The black SUV parked across her driveway. The forged HOA amendments. The mysterious man she hired off the record. The sudden appearance standards nobody voted for. And the old budget files I accidentally saw weeks ago. Karen wasn't enforcing rules. Karen was covering tracks. And for the first time, I realized something chilling. I wasn't just fighting for Lily anymore. I was fighting for every family in this HOA who had been fined, threatened, silenced, manipulated, or pushed out by her corrupt little empire. But before I exposed Karen publicly, I needed evidence. Real evidence. Undeniable, unshakable, court-proof evidence. And I knew exactly where to find it. I waited until the SUV left again. It always left around noon, according to Mrs. Whitman. The hired man seemed to follow a schedule, in by morning, out by lunch, back around nightfall. That gave me a 2-hour window. When the street finally cleared, I tucked my badge into my jacket, grabbed a small USB drive, and slipped outside. I didn't walk directly toward Karen's house. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I took the narrow path behind our row of houses, the one lined with trees and shrubs that nobody used except kids chasing balls. It led straight to the back of the HOA office building, a small, white structure Karen used like her personal throne room. The back door had no cameras. Karen always believed threats came from the front because she didn't respect the quiet people who moved silently. She should have, because today, one of them was coming for her. I approached the back door and tested the handle. Locked, but the frame? Weak. The screws? Old. One hard lift with a flathead tool, and the hinge gave a soft metallic groan. I slipped inside, quietly. The office smelled like lavender disinfectant and cheap printer ink. Karen's desk sat directly in the center, her shrine. Papers perfectly aligned, pens in color order, a massive framed HOA President of the Year certificate hanging above everything like a portrait of a dictator. But the prize wasn't on her desk. No, it was in the cabinets behind her desk, the ones with the keypad lock. That keypad was new. I knelt and studied the smudges. Karen's fingers always left faint lotion streaks. I tapped the numbers with the most oil residue. 6409. Then I tried combinations. Wrong. 6904. Wrong. 4069. Wrong. I paused. Karen was narcissistic. Predictable. Obsessed with her own birthday. June 2009, the year she takes all credit for reviving the neighborhood. So I tried it. 0609. Beep. Green light. Of course. The cabinet clicked open, and inside were rows of organized binders, each labeled by year. HOA statements, budgets, citations, fines, approval papers, invoices. I pulled out the current year's binder. It felt too heavy. My pulse quickened as I flipped through it. Page after page had signatures that didn't match board member handwriting, amounts that didn't match bank deposits, maintenance fees that didn't align with actual work done. Then I found it, a file labeled Community Improvement Fund, Confidential. I opened it and nearly dropped the binder. Tens of thousands of dollars. Missing. Redirected. Rewritten. Marked as external contractor fees. And the contractor's name? The same man she hired. My breath hitched. She wasn't just paying him for intimidation. She was paying him with stolen HOA money. Evidence. Motive. Timeline. Everything. But then I spotted a second folder tucked behind the others, so thin I almost missed it. Complaint records, it read. I opened it shakily. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A complaint, filed by me. Except, I never filed it. It claimed I had threatened Karen. Claimed I had acted violently. Claimed Lily was a disturbance. And the worst part? Karen had signed the bottom with a forged version of my signature for acknowledgement. My chest tightened. She wasn't just setting me up. She was laying groundwork to remove me legally. If I didn't act fast, Karen could use these falsified documents to weaponize the HOA, the police, or even Child Protective Services against us. My hands trembled as I copied every file onto the USB drive. Every page, every signature, every forged document, every missing dollar, every illegal contractor payment. This wasn't evidence anymore. This was dynamite. If Karen ever found out what I now held, she wouldn't stop at Bleach. She'd aim higher, darker, deadlier. I slid the USB into my pocket and carefully reorganized the cabinet so it wouldn't look disturbed. As I slipped out the back door, I didn't breathe. Not until I was 3 houses away. Then I exhaled shakily, only to freeze again, because waiting on my porch, sitting on the top step like he owned it, was the man. Black jacket, black gloves, expression unreadable. He wasn't looking at me, he was looking at my house. At Lily's window. My heart throbbed painfully in my chest. He turned slowly and smiled. Afternoon, he said. I didn't respond. He stood, stretched like he had all the time in the world, and stepped closer. Karen told me you were difficult, he said casually. I like difficult people. Makes my job interesting. My voice stayed steady. What job is that? He smirked. You'll find out soon enough. Then he walked past me, without another word, heading toward Karen's house. But he wasn't threatening me. He was warning me. And that meant only one thing. Karen knew. She knew I had turned against her. She knew she was losing control. And she had unleashed her private enforcer to intimidate me. But she still didn't know one thing. That I had everything I needed to destroy her. And she definitely didn't know what I was truly capable of, because the badge inside my pocket wasn't just a piece of metal. It was a warning, a promise. And soon, Karen would learn exactly why you never ever hurt a child, especially mine. The man's footsteps faded down the sidewalk, but the echo of his words stayed behind, thick, heavy, poisonous. For a long moment, I stood frozen on my lawn, unable to move, unable to breathe. My mind kept flashing back to the bleach hitting Lily's face and the way that man had looked up at her window like she was a target. Not again. Not ever again. I walked inside, quickly locked the door, and checked every window latch twice. Lily sat on the couch coloring, quietly, her injured cheek slightly pink, but healing. She looked up at me, that soft vulnerability still lingering in her eyes. Mom, why do people hurt us? She asked in a tiny voice. That question stabbed me deeper than any danger Karen could bring. Baby, I whispered, crouching beside her. Some people hurt others when they feel scared, when they feel small inside. But you did nothing wrong. You're the strongest girl I know. She gave a tiny smile, but I saw the fear hiding behind it. I kissed her forehead and stood, because now I had a mission. And Karen had no idea what kind of storm she had stepped into. I went to my room and pulled the old metal case from the top of my closet, the one I hadn't touched in years. My badge rested inside, beside a thumb drive of old encrypted files and a small lockbox containing tools I hoped I'd never need again. I wasn't law enforcement anymore, but I remembered the rules. The protocols. The traps criminals set when they're about to crumble. Karen was unraveling. The forged paperwork proved that. The hired muscle proved it. The threats, the Bleach attack, the falsified complaint, every step showed desperation. And desperate people do stupid things. I pulled out my badge and stared at it, a symbol of who I used to be, who I might need to become again. Then I took the USB with all Karen's crimes and plugged it into my laptop. The folders popped open like a confession, numbers, invoices, false signatures, hidden contractor payments, private messages between Karen and unknown contacts. One line in particular made my blood run cold. Make her leave before the audit. Me? Karen wanted me gone because I saw the mismatched numbers in the HOA funds. She wanted to silence me before the upcoming inspection could expose her, which explained the bleach, the threats, the fake complaint, her midnight knocking. But the part that shook me most was a scanned image, a document labeled, Property Transfer Proposal Pending, and under Property to Acquire was my address. My vision blurred with fury. Karen wasn't just trying to push us out. She was trying to steal my home. She was planning to claim I was unfit to maintain residence due to safety violations, seize the property under HOA emergency provisions, and resell it at a profit before the audit revealed her fraud. It wasn't personal at first. It was business. But the moment I saw the numbers, it became personal to her. And when she threw bleach at Lily, she made it personal to me. The USB was full, more than enough for the police, for the auditors, for the board, for the news. But exposing Karen required timing. If I confronted her now, she'd retaliate. If I waited too long, she'd strike again. I needed a perfect moment, a public moment, a moment where she couldn't hide, run, or lie. And that moment approached faster than I expected, because at 3 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mandatory HOA emergency meeting tonight, 8 p.m. Attendance required. Noncompliance will result in immediate penalties. Karen. Of course. She was accelerating the plan. Likely because she sensed a threat. Maybe her hired man reported seeing me near the office. Maybe she saw the back door hinge bent. Maybe she connected the dots. But one thing was clear. Tonight, she would try to finish what she started, and I would be ready. As sunlight faded, I cooked dinner for Lily, trying to keep everything normal. We talked about cartoons and school projects, and she smiled more than this morning, though I could still see shadows of fear in her eyes. I tucked her into bed early. "Mom, you're not leaving, right?" she asked, gripping my hand. "No, baby," I said softly. "I'll be right here." I kissed her forehead. But the truth? I wouldn't be staying inside. Not tonight. The HOA hall was only 3 blocks away. I could attend, expose Karen, and return before Lily even stirred. In theory. But nothing about tonight would be simple. At 7:50 p.m., the neighborhood streets buzzed with murmurs. Homeowners gathered, all confused. No one understood why Karen had called an emergency meeting on a weekday night. The hall was already full when I arrived. Karen stood at the front, wearing her royal blue HOA shirt with its golden accents, her badge polished to a blinding shine. She smiled when she saw me, not a friendly smile. A smile like she had already won. "Good evening," she said, voice sugary poison. "We're here to address a community threat." My heart thudded. Threat. She was going to accuse me, frame me, humiliate me. Good. She had no idea she was walking into her own grave. She tapped her papers dramatically. "A resident among us has displayed dangerous behavior, neglect, aggression, and instability. And I have documentation to prove it." Gasps filled the room. She held up forged complaints, the ones I found in her cabinet, the ones she wrote, and she continued, "This individual's child is a disruptive presence." That's where she made her mistake, her fatal mistake. She brought Lily into it publicly. A murmur rippled. People shifted uncomfortably. Someone whispered, "Is she really saying this about a kid?" Karen raised a final paper, preparing to vote on removing my family from the neighborhood. But before she could speak, I stepped forward. Calm, deliberate, prepared. "Karen," I said, voice ringing clearly, "you forgot to mention one thing." She blinked. I pulled the USB from my pocket and held it up. "I have every record from your cabinet, every forged signature, every stolen dollar, every illegal contractor payment, every scam." The room froze. Karen's face drained of color. I continued, "And since you brought up documentation," I reached into my jacket and held up my badge, not as a resident, not as a mother, but as who I truly was, former federal fraud investigator. A collective gasp hit the room like a shockwave. Karen stumbled backward. "No, this is she's lying," she stammered. I stepped closer. Cold, controlled, deadly calm. "You threw bleach at my child. You forged evidence. You hired an unlicensed enforcer. You stole community funds." Then I pointed at her hired man lurking in the back. "And he won't cover you tonight." Because he wasn't smiling anymore. He was backing away slowly. Karen's lip trembled. Her hands shook. Her voice cracked. "You don't understand. This neighborhood I built. You destroyed it," I said quietly. "And now, you're done." And with every homeowner watching, Karen broke. Completely. And the night was far from over, because what happened after the meeting would shock the entire neighborhood even more. For a long moment, nobody in the HOA hall even breathed. It felt like the entire room had frozen mid-heartbeat. Karen stood at the front with her forged documents shaking in her hand, her face stripped of every ounce of confidence she'd been flaunting for years. The golden trim on her HOA shirt, usually shining with pride, now looked like a desperate costume, a disguise that no longer fooled anyone. Her voice cracked. There's no proof. She's lying to all of you." I plugged the USB into the projector laptop before she could finish. The screen lit up. Bank statements, signatures, altered invoices, fake amendments, private emails, payment logs to her hired enforcer, complaint forms she forged in my name, the attempted property seizure documents. One by one, each file flashed across the room, every homeowner watching in stunned silence. A couple in the front row gasped as they recognized their own signatures forged. A middle-aged man cursed under his breath when he saw a $2,000 maintenance fine Karen charged him, money that never actually went to HOA repairs. A young couple whispered, "She's been stealing from all of us?" Karen staggered back, like the projector slides were physically striking her. "No, no, this is taken out of context," she screamed. "This is all manipulated." "It's over," I said quietly. "You're done." Homeowners began standing, one after another. Their faces were not angry. They were furious. A woman from 3 houses down stepped forward. "Karen, you fined me $600 for a poorly maintained mailbox. You said the money went to repainting the neighborhood fences, but the fences never got repainted." Another man said, "My security fee was doubled last year. I demanded receipts. You told me to stop asking questions." A retired veteran slammed his fist on the table. "You told me my patriotic porch flag violated HOA code. You threatened to remove it yourself." Karen's voice collapsed into a trembling whisper. You don't understand. I did everything for the community." "For the community?" I stepped closer. "Or for yourself?" She opened her mouth, closed it. Her eyes darted to her hired enforcer in the back of the room, silently pleading for help. But he wasn't looking at her anymore. He was watching me, watching the badge clipped on my jacket. His eyes narrowed, not in hostility, in calculation. Then he gave the smallest shake of his head, a quiet signal. He was done protecting her. He knew she was going down, and he wasn't about to go down with her. Karen saw it, and that's when she snapped. She lunged toward the projector, screaming, "Stop looking! All of you stop looking!" But I stepped in front of her, and she froze. Her eyes locked on my badge. "You're under investigation now," I said coldly. "Every file you touched, every dollar you moved, every lie you told, it's all being sent to the state audit team tonight." "I can fix this," she whispered, sweating, trembling. "Please, I never meant to." "You threw bleach at a disabled child," I said. "You don't get to talk about what you meant." The room went dead silent. Karen's lips quivered. "You ruined my life." "No," I replied, stepping aside so she could see her own crimes projected behind me. "You ruined your own life. I just exposed it." The HOA board president, who had been silent until now, finally stood. A tall, older man, firm voice. "Effective immediately, Karen, you are removed from your position as HOA president." Gasps filled the hall. Karen shook her head violently. No, you can't remove me. This board wouldn't exist without me." "Exactly," someone muttered, "and that's the problem." The board president continued. "All HOA operations are suspended pending an emergency audit. Law enforcement will be contacted tonight." Karen stumbled backward. Then she ran, just pushed through the crowd, shoved open the door, and sprinted into the darkness like a wild animal fleeing a trap. People gasped. Someone yelled to stop her. But I lifted a hand. "Let her go," I said, because she wasn't escaping anything. Not anymore. Her downfall had already begun. I walked home under the glow of streetlights, my hands still trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of everything that had just happened. When I reached the porch, I noticed a small shape sitting against a mailbox. The hired enforcer. He wasn't intimidating now. He wasn't smirking. He looked tired. When he saw me, he stood and lowered his gaze. "I'm done with her," he said. "She never told me she hurt a kid." I didn't respond. He shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not proud of what I do, but I don't touch families. I don't hurt children." She crossed a line. "Why tell me this?" I asked quietly. He shrugged. "Because you're the wrong person to pick a fight with. And because that girl of yours, she didn't deserve what happened." He pulled something from his jacket pocket, a small folder. "I found this in Karen's house before she ran," he said. "Thought you should have it." I hesitated, then took it. He gave one last nod, and disappeared down the street. No threats, no smirks, just gone. I opened the folder slowly. Inside were handwritten notes from Karen, pages and pages of her planning to falsify my complaint, stage warnings, plant evidence, and force the HOA to seize my home. Proof so damning it made the rest of the files look tame. I exhaled shakily. This was the nail in her coffin. When I walked inside, Lily was still asleep, peaceful, safe. I sat beside her bed and stroked her cheek, whispering softly, "It's over, baby. She'll never hurt you again." I meant every word, because by morning, auditors would have the files. By noon, police would knock on Karen's door. By evening, she would be stripped of every ounce of power she ever abused. But the most shocking part? What happened at sunrise? At 6:13 a.m., I got a call from a blocked number. "Hello." I answered. A trembling voice replied, "This is Officer Daniels. We're at Karen Weller's home. She turned herself in." I sat upright. Turned herself in? Yes. She came to the station, crying, rambling. She confessed everything. The Bleach incident, the forged documents, the fraud. All of it. I closed my eyes. Karen didn't flee. She broke. Completely. The officer continued. "She asked us to give you a message." I held my breath. She said, "Tell her I'm sorry." I hung up. For the first time since the bleach touched Lily's skin, I felt the weight finally lift. Justice wasn't just served. It was complete. If you're watching this, let this story be a reminder. No one has the right to bully your family. No one has the right to hurt your child. And no one, no matter how powerful they pretend to be, is above consequences. Comment the city you're watching from, and if you believe every community deserves protection from people like Karen, hit that subscribe button so we can keep exposing the truth. Because your voice, your support, your courage, that's what keeps stories like this alive.